Hello and welcome to the Hubscale Podcast. Today we have a very special episode where I'm joined by none other than CEO of ZeroFox, David Muse. It's a fantastic episode. We cover all things ZeroFox, David's journey to CEO, some of the biggest impacts he's had on his career along the way, what the future holds for ZeroFox, as well as the cybersecurity industry. It's one not to miss. It's a fantastic episode and a really great insight into David and the business that he runs. Let's dive straight in. So David, welcome to the podcast.
It's great to see you, Callum. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I look forward to the discussion.
No, absolutely. We've got tons to go through today, but I think a really good place to start for the uninitiated, shall we say, would probably be to talk a little bit about ZeroFox and what you do.
Absolutely, would love to. So ZeroFox plays in what we would deem the external environment of security, cybersecurity. And to some extent, I was speaking to one of our clients and we talk about really there is no external or internal anymore. So where we play is protecting our companies, our clients and entities around their digital assets. So if you think about items such as brand, reputation, their people, really anything and everything related to the goodwill on their balance sheet, that's what we're all about. So through identifying false domains, impersonations, any type of threats against executives, mainly through the social networks, a majority of our offering is tied to that. And in addition to that, we've got a very rich threat intelligence data offering, both through services, but those are all around network vulnerabilities, identity, fraud, and we also have an element of deep dark web operatives to add to that from a proprietary data standpoint. And then something we're really excited about is the discovery application, the ability to go out and map beyond your physical assets, but we all know the proliferation of digital assets, anything that's out there on the network, any type of connected devices that could have a digital persona tied to it. We map that out and actually feed into the protective landscape as far as our digital risk offering. And then lastly, a really emerging application solution that we're getting a lot of traction around is this market opportunity for the convergence of your digital threat landscape against your physical. So sentiment, behavioral analysis, tracking everything we do in digital risk protection, which could potentially lead to a physical threat. And those are very interesting use cases you can imagine beyond, protest or any type of disruption, but also supply chain management, your 4 or 5 year long-term planning as it relates to where you're going to be going from a country-specific or international growth strategy. All of that ties into allowing our clients to understand what the landscape is from a sentiment standpoint, but also geopolitical, weather goes into that and everything else. So very rich portfolio, but all targeted around protecting our clients from the digital threats in that landscape that, as you can imagine, is ever proliferating and ever evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great way to sum up probably the industry, right? Is ever evolving. So it's fascinating. We'll definitely dive a little bit further into ZeroFox. We've got lots to talk about in terms of, not just ZeroFox, but yourself and your journey. So for the listeners and the viewers, we'll definitely dive more into that later on. But I think, we're only a few weeks into the year. I think a really good place to start, right, would be reflect on, what was last year like for you guys and what was that journey been? Obviously, since you've joined the business, how has it been?
Absolutely. It has been a lot, all very, very positive. But for those that are familiar with ZeroFox, we had the opportunity to go from a publicly held company to a privately held company. And that transaction was closed last May when I had the opportunity and absolute privilege to come in and lead the company and transitioning from our founder, James Foster, over time. And you can imagine both from a transaction standpoint, but with all the angst and anxiety for our global community of employees, anytime you go through a transition like that, anytime that, private equity enters into the equation, there's a lot of urban legends and myths around what that means. But I couldn't be happier with our partner in Haveli Investments, but also our approach to that change. And starting back in May, we had the opportunity to do a number of things that we really leaned into. Number one was ensuring that we were set up not just for growth and continue our trend of double-digit growth year over year since inception, but also growing from a profitable standpoint. So very aggressively looking at making sure we were aligned as an organization to be resilient and sustainable in the future, ensuring that we had freed up the necessary investment profile to invest in innovation, which is super important to our market standing, but also our clients. And so achieving a lot over really the last half of the year of getting the company in a position that we can really reach our potential throughout. We did divest a piece of the business, which is mainly focused on breach response, which allowed us to put that business in the hands. It's a great business standalone and someone that's interested in that. But from an adjacency and focus perspective, it allowed for the company to really focus on what we do best, which our previous comment around digital asset protection, as well as just really focused on our cybersecurity technology and our platform. So a great testament to all the hard work and all the foxes within ZeroFox. Not only did we grow and hit our marks, but also did it in a way where we're just set up for wild success this year.
Yeah, fantastic. I love the branding as well, the foxes and the little mascots we've got as well. So
It's
awesome.
good. It's good. We got great gear.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have to get my hands on some one day. One of the other things, I guess, while we're reflecting, is to kind of find out a little bit more about you. I think a lot of people, when, they look at CEOs, it's often with admiration. And a lot of people, I think, probably listening and viewing potentially may want to go on that journey themselves. I mean, how did that journey begin for you? And has it always been a goal to become a CEO? And was that where you wanted to take your career?
I started out, I like to reflect upon, I started out as a sales guy, carrying a quota, carrying a bag, full commission as we started out. And inherently with that, it's always a balance. Talk a lot about our leaders and their journey to leadership. It's a balance of, look, all of us strive for success and performance, and most often than not, that's as an individual contributor, but always had an affinity for leading teams, setting strategy, and really motivating a group of individuals to achieve more tomorrow than they are today. And so there was a natural inclination to move up through leadership. I will tell you, kind of like a lot of people, there's a lot of blind ambition when you're much younger, and with age comes some wisdom, but there was always this gravitation towards taking, skills and taking really more advantage of opportunities to step up, lead people, inspire people, move through change, and take, whatever skills I could bring to the table, but most importantly, leverage and set an environment for everybody to be successful. And, I think if you do that enough times and you surround yourself with just really great people, naturally you'll have opportunities to step up.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And I think I always find whenever I speak to leaders, there's always moments, or be it an individual or a moment in time that's really kind of had a big impact on their career. If you look back, can you think of any moments where you're on that journey that's kind of really redirected your career or helps you kind of catapult forward, shall we say?
Absolutely. And there's probably too many to count. I've been really fortunate and blessed from really early in my career of having great mentors, and most importantly, having great mentors that probably allowed me to do more in a spot where I didn't necessarily have the experience or really the broad tenure to move into those spots, but took advantage of it. If I was going to think about one event from a personal standpoint that really brought me to where I am today, leadership style, kind of reflection on how we think about businesses. It was following my first stint as a CEO. And for those that have gone through it, being a first-time CEO is much different than what you anticipate it to be. And it's back to this transition from individual contributor to much more of a leadership role, understanding this isn't about you. This is about the company. This is about the people. This is about the influence on the environment. And like a lot of first-time CEOs, went in there doing all the right things, at least in my mind. But you always hit a point that you need to have a more broader view. And it is not going to be individual efforts. You've got to be open. You've got to be communicative, not just around what's going really well, but also areas of the business or areas of the environment that may or may not be in your control, but pass along not only the good news, but also the bad news with it. And so, that stint as a first-time CEO abruptly ended, and upon reflection, there were a lot of things that I learned from that experience, but very very quickly following that, my wife had been diagnosed with breast cancer, and she is doing fabulous now. It's been a long journey. But the reason I bring this up as an event standpoint, up until that point, which was really a shovel to the face, and you can imagine someone that, drives their career and performance and everything else, was a massive hit to the ego. But it was also very much a wake-up call related to self-awareness, reflecting. Oftentimes in these positions, we pursue a persona or an archetype that we feel is what a CEO needs to be, which is hard charging, screw everything else, so to speak. It's all about the numbers, it's the spreadsheets, it's, the analysis in terms of reaching your goals. But there's a lot of the body of work as to how you do that, how you lead. And so this wake-up call for me was forcing me to analyze, am I being authentic or am I chasing an archetype? And it also, things slow down, obviously, for those who have gone through an event like this. And it really drove home to me, be myself, lean into who I am, lean into being an authentic leader, understanding that, look, points in time are just that. Focus on the long term, focus on what matters most, which is, not being defined by our roles, not being defined by, performance and results, but being defined around, again, leading a group of people, inspiring a group of people, and showing up every single day, appreciating the opportunity to do so. And I would say that specific point in time really pivoted me to much more of a natural motion, much more of an appreciation for the people, as well as just a pure understanding that, we're going to have good days, we're going to have bad days, but if you take a step back, it's all going to be okay. As long as we're doing the right thing, we've got the right people in the right place, we're providing clear direction, we're providing the resources in order to accomplish those goals. That event, more than anything, put me on a path that once you kind of hit that natural position as a leader, drown out these noises of expectations and that persona that shows up in that archetype, everything's become a much easier and actually a lot more successful.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's amazing insight as well, because I really do, kind of, listening to what you're saying there around the persona, there really is a persona around the CEO and who they are. And I think sometimes we forget it's an individual, it's a human being that's going through their own kind of journey in their own way. And it kind of ties into my next question, which is, I think the CEO role can be seen as quite a lonely role. You're there on your own. It's down to you to kind of lead that ship forward, whichever ship it may be. But how do you kind of then, maybe that impact you've had as well, and the journey you've been on kind of ties into this, but how do you stay motivated, and how do you keep yourself just completely driven? And whilst you've got hundreds, sometimes thousands of people looking towards you to be their kind of bright light every day.
Yeah, absolutely. It's when you put it that way, it is a lot of pressure. It is a lonely seat at times. And what I've been very fortunate is to surround myself with just top talent. And more than anything, with experience and talent, these are just really great humans and great leaders. And it doesn't have to be that lonely. I mean, obviously, there is the split of making decisions. Ultimately, I'm the single person of accountability for performance and motivation. But I find that the pressure eases to some extent when you surround yourself with really great people. You recruit people that share a common philosophy that, again, this isn't about us. This is about the company, the performance of the company, making sure that we're connected as an organization. We're open, honest, and transparent every step of the way. And when that culture sticks, you kind of create a flywheel where you're surrounded by like-minded individuals, have a clear goal that we're marching towards. But the facilitation of this openness kind of breaks down silos. And inherently, when you break down silos underneath you, that pressure is, it's somewhat smoothed out amongst the leadership. And it doesn't have to be that lonely. But a lot of it has to do, like anything else, is making sure we have the right people, the right culture, and the right direction from leadership.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant, because I think even as a business, Hubscale, we every single day we're talking to organizations about talent, about culture, and culture is probably the number one thing that we speak about every single day. It's bringing the right individuals into the right business in the right kind of framed environment to set them up for success, right? And you kind of touched on it a little bit there, but what does company culture mean to you? And when you look at where ZeroFox is right now, what does that culture look like?
Yeah, to my earlier point, one of the lessons you learn over time, and I think it's nowhere more apparent than in technology and in software. You don't have to look much further than each and every one of our P&Ls, and the expense line item is it's people. That's all we have. And I always like to talk about, look, the software, the technology, it doesn't have a personality, well, at least not yet with AI. But it can't build relationships. There's certain augmentation of our solutions that inherently are going to be tied to our people and tied to our subject matter expertise and experience. But if you focus on that and you focus on it early, and I always like to talk about, I will never say the words trust me. I always talk about, trust me until I give you a reason not to. And with that being just very open and transparent. And when you go through, we go through organization changes, we go through direction, we put in place additional processes and how we run the business. But if you do that alongside, again, this culture of open, transparent, performance orientation, making sure the connective tissue is there across all functions, people will rally around that. People want to have trust, and trust goes both ways. And the consistency of that openness has really allowed us to drive that forward. And the most difficult part around culture overall is that's not something I can dictate. Everybody can put posters on the wall, and we have flying eagles and nice comments, but it's got to be held by each individual. And the one thing we're constantly focused on is it's great to grow. We want to grow. We're in a position to really grow and hit all of our marks and be wildly successful. But as you scale and you grow as a company, that culture, you got to really keep an eye on it to make sure that it grows alongside of the company. And that gets down to every individual buying in, every individual being a promoter, being a culture carer. And if you do that correctly, if the organization, really surrounds itself and holds that true, everything else becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. And you kind of touched on it there around how that culture dictates growth, it dictates hiring, it has a big influence, and it can be quite hard to scale the culture. I think it's easier in a small business, but as you get bigger, you got to keep that culture going maybe without the posters as well along the way. But when you look at that culture and your impact on hiring, and as you continue to grow ZeroFox and the business gets bigger, have you found that your hiring has changed? What type of people you look for has changed? Someone watching this is thinking, I love the sound of the business. ZeroFox sound incredible. Yeah. What is it you're looking for from your next cohort of people?
Yeah, so this market, with all the great opportunities we have here, and I often like to say, like, we have great opportunities, but it's all for the wrong reasons, given the threat landscape. But with that, candidates and overall talent has such a myriad of options. And, you can always compete with compensation, right? And to some extent, that's market driven. But the intangibles, as far as what the company means, what it means to be a Fox within ZeroFox, what it means to surround yourself with like-minded people. I feel like if the culture is in place and your company embodies that from a recruitment and candidate standpoint, we will naturally draw like-minded people that want to be a part of it, which is, look, we work hard, we do things very analytically, we drive with a certain pace of play. But when you do that and it's part of the overall culture and everybody's doing the same thing, it becomes kind of second nature. It doesn't become a burden. And I always like to talk about, like, we've had such a great benefit over the last couple of quarters around recruiting, but recruiting that's being driven by friends, friends of family of the company, employees of the company. And I oftentimes, like, if we can draw that, it affirms a couple of things. One, it's a great opportunity for people that want to explore what it means to be part of ZeroFox. Most importantly, if our employees are bringing, connections and friends and offering up candidates to fill roles, that means that employee believes in what we're doing day in, day out. And there's no more sacred, bond than those relationships, and putting those relationships into this ecosystem just signifies the confidence they have in the company.
Yeah. Really obvious question though then is when you joined in May 24, why did you join ZeroFox? I think lots of people will want to know that as well. You've mentioned lots of amazing things there, but what was it for you that really set them apart from the other opportunities you had?
So in my background, a lot of what I do, and I've been fortunate enough to take on, are leadership roles tied to companies that have an enormous potential, but for a lot of different reasons, kind of hit a stall button. Now, that stall button wouldn't be reflecting the performance. ZeroFox has had such tremendous performance year over year, but that evolution of maturity to do something a little bit different tomorrow, bring in some additional experience and leadership to really drive the company towards its potential, but do it in a way that's sustainable for the long term. And what drove me to ZeroFox is I always talk about like nothing was broken. I mean, we got market leadership. We're participating in a segment around digital risk protection that, for all intents and purposes, we were the category leader and actually category maker nearly 10 years ago when the proliferation of networks. So great reputation, great acknowledgement of our products and solutions, what they mean to the marketplace. Just needed a little bit of a different lens on how we actually operate and how we actually go. And so the attractive piece for me is you had awesome company, great reputation, great leadership, really phenomenal technical stack and offering. We don't have any type of technical debt, which is oftentimes a barrier when you come into these companies. And the ability to take that and just move from strength to strength was super attractive. And obviously in a market that is ever evolving, and there's a little bit of a push and some level of intensity to constantly be a leader in what is in essence a technical arms race against the threat actors. So I could go on for days, but it was super attractive on a number of different components. And it's played out over the last 8 months. I couldn't be more, privileged to be here.
No, absolutely. And I guess, from you mentioned that it is such a competitive landscape, the cybersecurity as a whole. And I think, it's a technical arms race, like you say, it's a constant evolution. You can't ever stand still. When you think from, I guess, your customer perspective, what do you think it is that really sets ZeroFox apart and is a reason that they should be coming to you and be saying, hey, let's work together, let's partner together?
So there's the usual, two things that I would reference, which to some extent are table stakes. Number one is they want to have trust and confidence that, we're committed to not standing still. We're committed to continue to invest. We're continuing to lean on the innovation that our engineering group and our product group is listening to the market, listening to our clients, as well as just taking the advantage of this decades-long experience in the space to continue to lead the market. So there's confidence in we are going to be reaching into them, listening to them, as well as delivering solutions based on this ever-evolving landscape. The second is we're not just going to be here next year or the year after, but we can be a partner for into perpetuity. And that reflects a lot of things. One is reputation, the history, the say-do ratio, doing what we'll say we do constantly, meeting them where they are. But most importantly, I do think that there's benefit to not only being a growth-oriented company, but doing it profitably, where there is little or no doubt that we're going to be resilient. And even through market ups and downs, we're going to be here to service them. So those are kind of table stakes. Most importantly, and a lot of people will answer it this way, it's our people. Any type of technology, again, in a point in time, it will address a certain business pain. It will deliver value, but over long term, you've got to have the people to partner with your clients, understand their needs, be flexible, respond appropriately. And technology is nothing but codifying all of that subject matter expertise around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've done a lot of reflecting as well, right? We've looked back, really great 24, and we've learned a lot about ZeroFox, and let's look forward, right? What does beginning of the year, we've just wrapped up SKOs, what does this year look like for ZeroFox? What are your ambitions? What are you hoping to achieve this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited. I mean, part of what we went through the last 8 months and in the last year around some of the internal optimization and investment in the organization is setting us up for wild success, and wild success driven off a lot of functionality and different solutions that we're introducing to the market. Number one is, it's one thing to be technically oriented as a platform. Our platform can do all kinds of great things, be highly configured, but the interaction with the client, we talk about the user interface, we talk about the client journey, spending a lot of time and effort around making it simple, making it easy for our client to go to one single place, manage this self-service, whether it be reporting or configuration, really leaning into that. Obviously, like a lot of companies, we always got to talk about AI. But what I'm really proud of is the investment and the planning we have to go beyond what I always talk about, beyond PowerPoint, and leveraging AI, not just in our collection capabilities, but also detection, getting really smart around synthetic media, deep fakes, and these ongoing threats are proliferating where we've got to match and actually exceed the technology that the threat actors are leveraging. But on the external face, back to that client experience, leveraging agent technology. And this goes back to decades worth of experience and analysis as to interpreting threats and not just answering the question of what should I be concerned around, but how should I address this? So the contextual relevance driven by agent technology is something that I'm really excited about. And then, I could go on again, a lot of features related to the convergence of digital and physical security, augmenting our threat intelligence data feeds with proprietary and additional data sets. And then I mentioned the discovery aspect, really getting smart around how do we assess and analyze the digital landscape, the cyber assets, and then close that loop in an automated and real-time fashion. As those proliferate, you're automatically kind of setting up what you want to protect and be alerted around. So 2025 is a huge opportunity for us, not only from a solution offering, but we've spent a lot of time making sure that we are really meeting our channel partners and working with them in conjunction as one of the same as we pursue not only existing client relationships, but also the new clients. We've got a lot of investment from an international perspective, expanding into the DACH region, long history in the Middle East, but doubling down there. So we have a lot of work to do, but really great returns just being a month into our fiscal year and a lot of excitement that not only are we excited about it, but affirmation that we're doing the right things from the market standpoint.
Yeah, it's following on great foundations and continuing to grow and move forward, right?
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. So one of the questions, I love to ask this question. I think everybody answers it in a different way and has a different opinion. But we spoke about, you kind of touched on it then. AI is having a huge impact on the industry. There's lots of different elements that are kind of going to probably challenge the industry over the next 5 to 10 years. If you, I guess, are looking forward at what you think, be it technology wise or geopolitically wise, what do you think is going to have the biggest impact on the industry over the next sort of 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, it's balancing how we leverage AI. So I talked a lot around how we leverage it internally to be more productive, more consistent, higher quality outcomes for our clients. That's number one. I think if you can, you can think about this positively, or you can think about it down paths that would keep all of us up every night, worrying about what the ramifications would be. I honestly feel like this is going to be a net add for the industry at large. I'm constantly thinking about not only are we having access to all these technologies that are changing on a daily basis, but the threat landscape, the threat actors, those that want to do harm have access to the same technology as well. So it's almost, beyond the promotion, beyond all the cool features that we're excited about with AI, it's a necessity to invest in this for no other reason than it's just part of our world. And it's yet another tool that we can leverage to do good, but it's also a tool that other folks can do bad with. And I always think about, disruption, not just for our clients, but for ourselves. And with the emergence of this AI technology, I think in any industry, it lowers the barrier to entry for technology offerings. It lowers the barrier to entry for people to be in the space and meet our clients' needs. So we have a very healthy paranoia internally that if someone's going to disrupt us, if someone's going to disrupt the space by leveraging new technologies, we're going to do that to ourselves. We're not going to wait and react. And so that's another lens that we take a look at these emerging technologies and how best to invest in them and how best to embrace them.
Yeah, absolutely. It feels like AI especially, and if we embrace it in the right way, it's going to have really positive impacts. And I think not too much scaremongering as well, for now. We'll save that for another day. But David, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. We've covered lots, and it's been a really, really great chat. And I know that our listeners and viewers will definitely enjoy this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Callum.
It's been fantastic. Thank you. And for all of our viewers and listeners, please like it and subscribe, and we'll have more videos and podcasts for you in the near future.